They're not asking the stars for mercy, Priya. They're asking permission to stop feeling guilty.
The sky above New Holloway had not been blue in 3 years. It burned a sickly violet now, streaked with the ion trails of ships that did not belong to Earth. Princess Vaelith Sorrenmoor knelt at the front of her army, palms pressed together beneath her chin, eyes closed, lips moving in a prayer older than her people's memory of war. Behind her stood 10,000 soldiers of the Thrall Dominion, spears raised, banners the color of dried blood snapping in the ash-choked wind. They had crossed the void to conquer a planet their scouts called Primitive. Vaelith had been sent to lead the final assault, and to make certain it looked merciful when the histories were written. "Great ones," she whispered, "let this world kneel swiftly, so its suffering is short." She did not believe her own prayer. She had stopped believing in mercy the day her father, the Dominion's High Regent, told her that mercy was simply cruelty with better public relations. 3 kilometers away, in the bones of a collapsed parking structure, Commander Dorian Vance watched the Thrall lines through a cracked visor and said nothing for a long moment. Beside him crouched the remnants of Project Sentinel, 6 men and women who had once been ordinary soldiers before Earth's last free government pumped them full of adaptive gene therapy and called them, half joking, half desperate, the beasts. "They're praying," said Priya Okonkwo-Lindqvist, Dorian second, watching the distant kneeling figure through a scope. "The whole front line. Weird time for it. They pray before they burn a city," Dorian said. "Means they know exactly what they're about to do." He keyed his comm all beast units. "Hold position. We move when they rise." The Thrall army rose as one. Vaelith opened her eyes, drew her ceremonial blade, sharp despite its gold filigree, and raised it toward the ruined skyline. 10,000 spears answered her. The advance began. What the Thrall scouts had failed to report was simple. Earth's governments were broken, its cities were rubble, but its people were not finished. Project Sentinel had spent 18 months learning to survive in that rubble like animals, because that was exactly what they had been made to become. The first wave of Thrall soldiers entered the fractured streets of New Holloway expecting resistance from frightened civilians. Instead, the shadows moved wrong. A soldier vanished from the flank without a sound. Then another. Panic rippled backward through the ranks faster than any order could travel. Vaelith felt it before she understood it. The shift in her soldiers' formation, the first true fear she had seen in Thrall eyes since the invasion began. She pushed forward through her retreating vanguard to see for herself, and that was when she first saw Dorian Vance. He stood alone atop a collapsed overpass, not in armor but in scarred tactical gear, his enhanced muscles visible beneath torn sleeves, eyes glowing faint amber from the gene therapy still active in his blood. He was not a soldier of any nation she recognized. He was something Earth had built out of desperation, in its own image, twisted by war the same way her own people had been twisted by conquest. "Call the retreat," he said, voice carrying easily across the broken ground. "Or my beasts finish what your prayer started." Vaelith raised her blade. "You would slaughter an army that has already begun to kneel?" "You didn't kneel for us," Dorian said. "You knelt so history would forgive you before you needed forgiving." The word struck harder than any weapon could have. Vaelith had spent her whole life being told the Dominion's wars were righteous, that conquest was simply the shape mercy took when a species was strong enough to offer it. Standing in the ruin of a city her own soldiers had leveled, hearing a stranger speak the truth she had buried for years, something in her cracked open. She lowered her blade. "Stand down," she called to her army, and when they hesitated, she screamed it. "Stand down." Not every soldier listened. A captain near the rear line, loyal to her father's version of glory, raised his weapon toward Dorian instead. Priya's shot took him down before Vaelith could react, the crack of the rifle rolling across the silent battlefield like thunder closing a door. For a long moment, nobody moved. Two broken forces stood in the wreckage of a city neither of them had built, staring at each other across a truce that had not existed 30 seconds earlier. Why? Dorian finally asked, lowering his weapon a fraction. Why stop now, mid-conquest, for a stranger's insult? Vaelith looked at the ruins around her, at her soldiers, at the dying violet sky. Because I have spent my whole life reciting prayers I did not believe, for victories I was never permitted to question. You are the first person who has made me feel the weight of what I was kneeling for. Dorian studied her for a long moment, then extended a scarred hand. Not in friendship, not yet, but in something that might one day become it. Then help me end this war instead of finishing it, he said. Weeks later, when the Dominion's remaining fleet withdrew from Earth's orbit, driven back not by superior weapons, but by the collapse of unified command after their princess defected, New Holloway's survivors would tell a strange story, that the invasion had ended not with a final battle, but with an alien princess and a genetically altered human commander standing together in the rubble, refusing to let either side's cruelty finish what fear had started. Vaelith never returned to the Dominion. She stayed in the ruins she had once been sent to conquer, working beside the beasts to rebuild what her people had broken, proof that the stars had never owed anyone mercy, but people, given the chance, could still choose to offer it to each other.